Hello everyone, my name is Arini Vlotman. I'm here from Johannesburg in South Africa, and I'm so glad to be doing another admin chat with you. The topic that I've decided to discuss today is something that we deal with no matter which organization we are in, no matter where we are in our careers, which country we're in, what the culture is like, and what we do. But basically, it is dealing with difficult clients. But not only that, dealing with difficult clients and maintaining your professionalism and your credibility. So, my little Pikachu cat here at the back wants to be part of my video. So, anyway, what I have experienced and what I've seen a lot in the classrooms and the workshops and the training that I have is that people struggle to deal with difficult people. Right? We know this for a fact. It is hard to have somebody on the phone or in front of you ranting and raving and venting, especially if it's not something that you had anything to do with in the first place. Usually, when a person has come to you with an issue, it is something that's been happening over a period of time. So if they're anything like me, they have a list of who they dealt with, what the dates were, where they went, what was said, what was promised, and at the end of the day, it just wasn't resolved. And coming from a client perspective, we don't want our clients to be upset, right? We don't want them to be unhappy. We want them to have a good experience with us and with our organizations. So why is it that some people feel that, you know what, it's not their job, it's not their problem, it's not their business? That type of behavior is what pushes clients away. But coming back to dealing with difficult clients, what I've done is over a period of years and experiences and the training that I've done, I've put together a quick, surefire formula that you can remember. So it's a couple of steps, and I will summarize it at the end of this video, and you just write it down and you follow it. Obviously, you'll skip some or move some around, but if you follow this formula, it will help you deal with those difficult conversations that you're having. Okay, so in this scenario or any scenario, somebody has called you up, or somebody standing in front of you, and they are incredibly upset. They are ranting or raving, or they're aggressive, or they just are not respecting your boundaries, and they aren't respecting the organization, and they're basically upset. I mean, put yourself in a situation where you have gone to a service provider in your personal capacity and they haven't helped you at all, and you're frustrated. You've been pushed from pillar to post and nobody is helping you, and finally you've reached somebody on the phone, and you just want somebody to help you. You don't want to be transferred. You don't want your call to be taken and called back, or whatever the case is. You just want to vent, you want to tell your story, and you want to be helped. So this is what we are looking at, or that type of scenario. The first thing that I want you to do is listen to what the person is saying. Listen with intent to hear, not to respond. So automatically when somebody phones and says, well, I have this problem and it's got to do with Department X, and you think, well, this is not Department X. That's what you want to respond. You want to say, this is not Department X, can I transfer you? Or can I blah, 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 blah. And that's not what this person wants to hear. You are going to make them even more upset. So just listen to what they're saying. Let them get their story out. I promise you that it will cut their bluster. Right? You will, just by letting them vent, they may feel a little bit better. So listen to what they're saying, and if you can, just don't look at your emails, don't look at your phone, don't look at anything that's come in, because that's going to distract you from what they're saying. Okay, and this is, I can tell you this positively, people can pick up on the phone when you are distracted. I can tell you this because how many times has somebody phoned you and said, oh, you don't sound too well, or you sound, what's going on? And something's going on with you, but your tone of voice indicated that there was something wrong. So what you need to do is you make sure you're just listening to this person. The second thing is acknowledge what they are saying, right? It may not be your problem. It may not have been caused by you. You may be the wrong person for them to speak to. That doesn't matter. The fact is, this person needs somebody to deal with them. So acknowledge that they have a problem. Say, I hear what you are saying. I hear that you are saying X, Y, and Z. You've dealt with this person and you've dealt with that person and you're struggling. I'm sorry about that. So you're going to show empathy. Your next third step is to show empathy. Show understanding. This person is extremely upset. It could be a client who's been trying to get a hold of your boss for 2 weeks and trying to set up a meeting. It could be a client that has called and is looking for information from your department and hasn't received it. It could be a client that is waiting for a deadline for a submission from you guys and you haven't done it. Whatever the case is, empathize with them. Okay, it will immediately reduce their aggression. Empathize with them, but do not accept responsibility for the problem if it is not your responsibility. So say, I hear what you were saying. I'm sorry you've had to go through this. This is not how we usually deal with things. How can I help? So now you've listened to what they've said, okay? You've acknowledged that they have an issue, and it, no matter how small or how big it may be, it is a problem that they are experiencing and it deserves recognition. That's what they want from you, right? Now you've also told them you feel sorry, you are acknowledging and you are empathizing with them, and it will shift them a little bit, so they will feel as if you are helping them, you're on the same team as them, as opposed to you're the enemy number one, right? They just so happen to come to you. And remember not to accept responsibility for the problem, because it will become your problem at the end of the day. Once you've done that, you'll see this could have taken 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how long the client has an issue or how long they're ranting for. But once you've done that, you'll start to notice that the aggression levels or the feelings of upset that your client has been expressing to you has come down a bit, okay? Because they've now heard themselves, and you, by you remaining calm, you've reduced their stress a little bit, and they are now hopeful that somebody is actually listening to them. At this stage, you need to start asking questions. Now, it may not be your problem. That's fine. You need to deal with it. You were unlucky, number one, that got this phone call. And if you push them from pillar to post again, it's just going to create more issues for yourself and the organization. So even if you are not the right person to deal with and you don't know how to deal with the issue, you can still get information. So ask them who they dealt with. Take them through the events that occurred. What were the full names? What were the phone numbers? When did this happen? So they probably have this information on hand. Write it down for your sake as well as theirs. So by rehashing the whole thing, people will tend to remove exaggeration. So when they were frustrated and they came to you and they were just screaming, they may have exaggerated the story a little bit. When you are asking for facts, that's all they can give you. They can just tell you what happened, who it happened with, when it happened, why it happened, what they are asking for. Okay? Once you've written all of this down, and please write it down because you probably won't remember. And I know this because I've experienced it. I thought to myself, oh, I'm never going to forget what this guy has told me. But, I mean, things happen. You have such a busy day, and then 3 days later, this client comes back to you and you can't remember exactly what he's told you. You remember bits and pieces, but you can't remember the entire story. So write it down. Then repeat the sequence of events to them and ask them, how can I help? Don't assume that you know the answer to their problem. They may have told it to you already, or they may be experiencing this problem because nobody knows how to resolve it. Ask them, what can I do to help you? What do you want? Okay, and they will tell you X, Y, and Z. If you don't know anything about what they're asking you, this happens a lot. You just happen to be the person that receives this call. That's why it's good to ask them what they want from you. And then the next thing is to be honest. Okay, tell them upfront, can I help you? No. Can I help you? Yes. If I can't help you, what can I do to get your problem resolved? Right? Say, I will speak to these people. I will go to this department. I will phone, email, whatever the case is. But you have to resolve the issue. I know that it's probably not your problem, but in an organization, we can't work in silos. We work together, right? Your colleagues are that. If something happens in a similar situation, you'd want your colleagues to have your back as well. So, ask them, tell them that you are going to be working on this. Don't give them a timeline that is not feasible. So don't say in the next hour I'll get back to you, because who knows what could happen in an hour. Tell them, this is what I'm going to do. I will follow up and I will get back to you by tomorrow if I can, or within 24 hours if I can. If I don't get back to you, somebody will. But you have to commit to that. If you don't get back to them, you have to check up that somebody has gotten back to them, somebody has emailed them, somebody has phoned them, preferably, and resolved their issue, or is on their way to resolving the issue. What's the point of going through all of this and putting yourself in the firing line if your client's concern hasn't been met? Okay? And once you commit to that, you actually have to follow up. So once you put down that phone, you need to make sure that you go to the right people and you say, listen, this is what's happened. This is what I've experienced. This is why this client is upset. This is what they want. Who is going to solve this problem? If you can't do it, who's going to do it? If it means getting seniors involved, then that's what you have to do. But this is an upset client. You have to make sure that they follow through with it. And what I recommend, especially for professionalism and credibility, is follow up with that client. Say, I've done X, Y, and Z. I haven't been able to resolve it. It's now 2 or 3 days or a week later. Has your issue or are your concerns being met? Right? Has somebody come back to you? And if they haven't, you have to escalate it. No matter what position you are, whether they're internal clients or external clients, you have to treat them with respect, because you want them to come back to your organization. So make sure that you follow up with that, and whatever commitments you make sure that you are able to follow through with that. That's why I said in the beginning, be honest and acknowledge whether you can help or not, but don't take responsibility if it's not your problem. Because if it's not, it will come back to you, and your client is going to say, well, why did you say you could do this when you couldn't? Right? That's the first way you can throw that credibility of yours out the window. I promise you that, because once trust is broken, it can never be gained back, no matter how hard you try. That just is a matter of the fact. Okay, so what we did first was we listened with intent. Okay, then we acknowledged that there was a problem, or that this person has a perceived problem. It depends. Then we empathized with them, right? We tried to get them on our side, and we tried to show emotion. And we try to bring them down a little bit in terms of their aggression. That is really important. Then we wrote down everything that they told us, and we looked for fact. Remember, we're looking for facts. And once they rehash it, they'll remove the emotions from it and just give you factual information, which is what you're looking for, because at the end of the day, how are you going to solve it with just conjecture and without fact? Then you are committing to solving their problem, or getting somebody to solve their problem. And by committing, you're telling them, you're giving them an answer, or you're telling them when you're going to give them an answer, you're giving them a timeline, right? And you are committing to the fact that you are actually going to follow through on that timeline. You will lose credibility if you don't. This ties into solving the problem. So you said whether A, you can't, B, you can, whatever the case is, you need to just let them know that you can. When I look at any sort of client interactions, for me, authenticity is important. If you are not real and if you are not honest with your conversations, your client will pick that up. I can promise you that. You can see when somebody is being fake a mile away. How many times have you walked into a shop or into somewhere where you know the client service isn't that great, and they give you this, hi ma'am, you know, they're giving you that smile because it's probably part of their training or their induction, but you know they're not happy to see you or to be dealing with you. So be authentic. We go through moods, we get upset ourselves. We can't always be happy and chirpy when dealing with clients, especially if they're venting and they're aggravated and they're aggressive. So just be authentic, just be real, be yourself, and they will trust you. Because remember, we said earlier on, once you break that trust, it's broken. There's no going back. The last thing I want to say is that you need to be assertive. When you are dealing with anybody in this type of situation, they're coming there angry. And it's probably taken a series of events to make them feel this way. And I know I've done this. Somebody tried to steal my online profile a couple weeks ago and applied for a credit card that was on my name, and they had my ID number, they had my details, they didn't have a copy of my ID, and yet my company, my bank was still giving my banking information away. So I was really upset because my bank wasn't getting back to me. The people who were trying, who were taking out this loan, or offering the loan, weren't getting back to me, and I was scared that somebody was using my information. By the time I eventually reached somebody to help me, or just anybody, it had been weeks of emails and phone calls and getting taken from pillar to post, and yeah, I'm thinking somebody could be taking out money on my name and I can't pay it back. There's nothing that I can do, right? So I eventually got a hold of this person and I said, listen, I'm really upset. I'm going to be honest with you. This is what is going on, and I acknowledge you might not be the person responsible for this. I know this logically, but I'm so upset, I'm going to tell somebody my story. Okay. And I did apologize for that, and obviously I didn't rant and rave, but I felt like it. I really, really felt angry. Imagine that person dealing with you and having all this bubbling, boiling anger. You don't want to deal with that. So you need to be assertive. Now, assertive is the median between being aggressive, which is probably what this person is. You don't want to be aggressive because it's going to push them to be more aggressive, or they could become defensive, or they could, and both of you could say and do things that are not professional in any way. But don't be submissive either. Don't just yes ma'am, no ma'am, thank you ma'am. People should be respectful, right? So you don't want, if somebody's screaming at you, and I've done this before, somebody's screaming at you, I'm acknowledging you, I'm listening to you, I'm trying to help you, but you are still screaming at me. State it. I would appreciate if you didn't talk to me that way. Okay, so don't say it condescendingly. Don't say, I'm trying to help you here, please don't scream at me. Just say, I'd appreciate if you didn't speak to me that way. Perhaps I can call you back when you're feeling a little bit better, or can I try and resolve your issue and call you back? But just don't allow that person to treat you in a disrespectful manner. Okay, as much as you are the one to take the call and you have to deal with it, it doesn't give that person the right to take away your rights. That's what assertiveness is. It's standing up for yourself without taking the rights of somebody else away from them. And this person is being aggressive, which means they are invading your space. And what happens in that situation is it increases your emotions, and that's when things spiral out of control. I don't know if you've seen it, where people get into verbal fights. They just start reacting badly, and that's what it is. It's a negative reaction to an already negative situation, right? So try and be assertive. And you can be assertive without being submissive, as we said, but you can listen. So you be respectful yourself. And then the last thing, well, I think I said the last thing, but this is the last thing, is that once you have gone through this whole process, and the person may come to you, they're still not happy, right? Because maybe they're just that frustrated. Let me speak to your manager, or who is your supervisor, or who is the person in charge. Now, if you look at any organization, I can give you any number of names. Do you want my manager? Do you want my manager's manager? Do you want Exco? Do you want the board? Who do you want? Do you want the people that you've been dealing with? Do you want their manager? So when people throw out that, let me speak to your manager, or let me speak to who's in charge, it's because they think you can't help them. So they feel it's not a direct hit on you, so don't take it personally. They just feel that perhaps you are not the person that could assist them, and somebody of a higher authority could assist them. So what you do then is, don't take it personally, and don't say, well, yeah, fine, speak to them. Say, I will get my manager, whoever the person is, to deal with this of a more senior level. They can call you back. I can't transfer you at this present moment because I need to know who the correct person on the correct level is to speak to. Don't just transfer them to any manager, because that person is going to then deal with the exact same thing that you've just been dealing with, right? And then your client is going to get even more upset, even though they've asked for it, because they have to now rehash the whole story all over again. Okay, and who knows who they're going to get through to. So tell them and be firm about this. Give me your details, give me your contact details, your name and your number, and I will speak to somebody on the appropriate level to deal with you if you are unhappy with me. The next thing you do is you go to whoever you've identified as the next person in line in this escalation process, and you say, this is what has just happened. I've just spoken to Joe Soap. He's incredibly upset because of X, Y, and Z. These are the facts. He wants you to call him back. You have to call him back. He's really upset, and you need to do it as soon as possible because you don't want the situation to escalate. Express to them that this is a serious situation. It may seem minor. Remember, in an organization where there's so many things happening in terms of client interactions, one thing could seem pretty minor, but it could cause a snowball effect. And I say this because I've experienced it. I dealt once with, when I was an EA, a lady called me up and she said she's really upset. Her husband was trying to get product information from us, and it had taken weeks for somebody to get back to him, and now it was just basically a very bad story. What had happened at the end of the day was she had gone to a function and she had met one of our board members there, and he was pissed because he was there speaking, and this woman put her hand up and said, your organization did this. Now, can you imagine how embarrassing and humiliating, and how that board member lost credibility for something that seemed minor, right? But turned out to be such a bad experience because the client experienced, had a terrible experience, and they was vocal about it in a very public forum. So that's just an example of what could happen. So make sure that whoever you go to, whoever you've escalated it to, deals with it. Okay, and give them the full story. Don't hold back, and don't try to, and I've done this because, I don't want to upset people, so I try and sugarcoat it and play it down. But no, just stick to the facts. Just tell them what happened and tell them they need to deal with it, and then follow up. So that is, in essence, my recipe for dealing with difficult people. And when I say and maintaining your professionalism and credibility, it's all about getting back to the client. That is how you maintain your credibility as a professional. Even though you may not have been the person to deal with in the first place, you are the one that came with the issue. So the first thing, again, I'm just going to recap it quickly. Listen with intent to hear, not respond. Okay? Acknowledge that your client is experiencing a problem, no matter how big or how small. Empathize with them so that they feel that you are on their side. Okay? Take down notes, write down the facts so that when you are going to try and solve the problem, you have the facts at hand and not just an exaggerated account of what happened. Another thing I just want to mention here is when people exaggerate about something, it creates emotions, and you may go and say, well, Sarah said this and she was supposed to help the client and she didn't, and Sarah's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know who this person is. So that's when the blame game starts. People start accusing this. Oh yes, another thing is, and I just remembered it when I said blame game, when you are speaking to the client, don't play the blame game. Don't say, well, that department was supposed to deal with it, or so-and-so was supposed to be the one who's helping you, because it's just going to exacerbate the situation. It's going to reduce your credibility, right? And it's going to show the client that you can't be trusted. So don't ever do that. Don't ever throw somebody under the bus just because it's not your problem. Okay, so now you have written down all the facts, and you know what you're going to do. Now you're going to meet your client's expectations. What are you going to do about it? Can you actually solve the problem? Yes, no. If no, what are you going to do about it? What's the timeline? How long are you going to take? Who's going to get back to them? If yes, same thing. What are you going to do about it? Who's going to get back to them? How long is it going to take? Right? You need to reassure your client because you need to now bring them back onto your side. And then you actually need to go and commit to doing this. So you need to go to the relevant people and say, this is what's happening. This is what I need you to do. This is why it's so important. And make sure that you follow up with whoever the parties are and with the client itself, just to close that gap. Okay, because now there's been a big issue. So somebody needs to come back to the client and say, has the issue been resolved? And it may not be your problem, but because you got the call, you need to make it your problem. This is a surefire way of dealing with any difficult clients in any capacity. Sometimes you could be walking past reception and you hear somebody rambling. Try this technique. It doesn't have to be, just write it down. So I think I'll just put it in a blurb at the end of the admin chat video, just so that you can follow it. Put it on a little sticky note somewhere, and as you use it more, you'll see it'll become easier and you'll get better results. Sometimes you may need to switch around a bit, and obviously it depends on your style, but I can guarantee you that 9 out of 10 times your client interactions will become easier. I'd really like to hear from you about what you think about this. If you think I should add something to it, if you've had your own experiences, please let me know. Let us share on Admin Chat. And please like, comment, and share my video. Connect with me. I am on LinkedIn. I've got a Facebook page, Always Be You. And I am on YouTube as well, Arini Vlotman, Always Be You. I will put my details at the end of this video. But please let me know what you think. And thank you so much for listening.